Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City Council meeting on October the 16th, 2023. Residents interested in participating in this meeting were eligible to register online using the delegation registration form at www.kitchener.ca/delegation or via email at delegation@kitchener.ca. Any written comments received prior to the start of this meeting have been circulated to members of Council and will form part of the public record of this evening's meeting. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge this evening that we are gathering on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. We recognize our responsibility to serve as stewards for the land and honor the original caretakers who came before us. Our community is enriched by the enduring knowledge and deep-rooted traditions of the diverse First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in Kitchener today. And now I'd like to ask those who are able to stand for the singing of our national anthem. Thank you very much. On motion by Councillor Johnson, the minutes of the regular meeting held September 25th, 2023, and special meetings held September 25th, 2023, and October 2nd, 2023, as mailed to the Mayor and Councillors, have been accepted. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Councillor Singh. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For item 2.3, discussion arising for part of the meeting, I had a conflict related to family property that's owned close to the subject matter.
Okay, thank you very much. That's been duly noted. And we'll now move on to presentations, and I will move over to the center podium. I'll actually flip myself this way. Council, excuse my back, but you guys all see me enough. Good evening, everyone. And this is actually one of my, and I think Council's favorite nights of the year, because it's an opportunity for us to recognize the organizations and the volunteers in our community who do so much incredible work over many, many years serving our community. Without sorry, starts actually here. On behalf of council and staff who work alongside all of you, it is our pleasure to dedicate time tonight to celebrate the milestone anniversaries of some of our affiliated groups. Without these volunteer-driven minor sports groups and neighborhood associations, many of the valued programs, events, and services Kitchener residents enjoy would not be possible. To say that these groups have faced challenges and uncertainty in the past several years, I'm sure you would all agree, has been an understatement. Your dedication and commitment has been unwavering as you adapted and were a bright light during some dark times, which is why it is so important that we are able to come together to honor all of you this evening. Thank you to everyone who is here tonight. It's absolutely wonderful to see so many of you here in the council chambers. We will start with the presentations to minor sports groups. Healthy citizens make a healthy community. 40 minor sport organizations are affiliated within the City of Kitchener, operated by volunteers who serve as executive members, coaches, team managers, special event organizers, and fundraisers. From basketball to diving and speed skating, there is an activity for every sport enthusiast of all abilities. The first group we would like to celebrate tonight is the KW Diving Club. Roland Lipke is here tonight to accept the certificate of appreciation in celebration of 35 years to the community. Can someone grab? Okay, thank you. Next, we would like to celebrate the KW Sports Council and Kids Sport. And I'd like to welcome Brian Horn and Lauren Burgess to accept this certificate of appreciation for 25 years of service to our community. One more? Oh, not yet. Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you. Next, I'd like to welcome Janet Greener of the KW Track 3 Ski Club to accept this certificate of appreciation for the club's 30 years of community contributions. In honor of KW Youth Basketball's 40 years of service to our community, please join me in welcoming Mike Quigley, who will be accepting this certificate of appreciation. Please welcome Jen Murray, who will be accepting the certificate of appreciation for the Kitchener-Waterloo-Sertoma Speed Skating Club's 60 years of community contributions and service. Okay. Now that's dedication. Here and running to go skating now. Our final presentation to a minor sports group tonight is the KW Skating Club. which is celebrating 85 years of continued programming and community building in Kitchener. Laszlo Sarkany and Mrs. Carolyn Fady, who has been a member of the club for 84 of the 85 years, are here to accept the Certificate of Appreciation. Mrs. Fady has a button, and it says, we're televised, so let me see it. Can I see it again? I've survived darn near everything, and I'll let you imagine what the D word was in there. Mrs. Fady, you have been an incredible trooper over all these years. I know any of the times I've been at the skating club shows, you've always been there, and you've had such a passion for our youth and the sport, and we really want to thank you for all that you've done for the skating club and for the sport in our community. Thank you. We'll now move on to our neighborhood associations. Kitchener residents enjoy a wealth of programs and resources close to home thanks to a wonderful working partnership we have with volunteers from the many neighborhood associations that operate across our community. I'd now like to invite Councillor Owaduni up to join me for the first presentation. And the first presentation we have is to celebrate the Huron Community Association. And thank you to Jen Hoffman-Bailey and Brenda Young for being here tonight to accept our appreciation for the association's 10 years of service to their neighborhood. And I guess who's kind of celebrating their new home that opened not that long ago either. Councillor Owaduni, don't leave yet. Our next presentation is to the Williamsburg Community Association, celebrating 15 years of continued programming and community building in Kitchener. And I'd like to invite Frank Prospero and Christine Furnaces forward to accept the Certificate of Appreciation.
Awesome, come on.
Okay, if I can now invite Councillor Singh forward. And we will now recognize the North 6 Neighborhood Association, formerly known as the Chandler Mowat Neighborhood Association. And I'd like to invite Emily Pike forward to accept the Certificate of Appreciation for 30 years of service to the community. And if I can now ask Councillor Deneau to come forward. And next, we would like to celebrate the Settlers Grove Association and welcome John Meller forward to accept this Certificate of Appreciation for 15 years of service to the community. Next up, I'd like to invite Councillor Johnson forward. And our first presentation goes to Andrew Bass and Judy Ann Chapman of the Greenbelt Neighborhood Association, who will be accepting the Certificate of Appreciation for the association's 45 years of neighborhood contributions. And Councillor Johnson, if you can stay up here. The next association is the Victoria Hills Neighborhood Association, and I'd like to welcome Bernadette Vanspal and Noor El-Masri to accept the Certificate of Appreciation for 50 years of service to our community. And now I'd like to invite Councillor Clancy forward. Unfortunately, Ted Parkinson was not able to be here from the Mount Hope Bridal Park Neighborhood Association, so I'll be presenting Councillor Clancy with the certificate for the association's 40 years of neighborhood contributions. Over the past years, 7 minor sports groups and 9 neighborhood associations have celebrated their milestone anniversary. Although not every group was able to join us tonight, on behalf of council, staff, and the citizens of Kitchener, I want to congratulate all of our outstanding long service recipients and send a heartfelt thank you on behalf of council to each and every one of the individuals who volunteer your time and energy to create a positive experience for our residents. Together, you and the organizations you volunteer with have contributed 630 years of service to Kitchener, and we are so grateful. So thank you very much, everyone, and council, please show our appreciation to the delegations who are here. If folks want to leave, they can, but you may want to just stay for this next first delegation. And before I read my normal delegation spiel, this one's a little bit special, but it does require us to actually pass a motion. We have a delegation here from the Festival of Neighborhood celebration, council invitation, Heather Majori and Jack Cooper. And I would like to, because we need to add them to the agenda, Councillor Chapman, you have a motion you'd like to bring forward?
Yes. Yes, thank you. I'd like to move that we allow Heather Majori and Jack Cooper to delegate this evening, and Councillor O'Dooney has seconded it.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. If I can welcome Heather and Jack forward. I understand we have an anniversary we're celebrating.
We do.
This is wonderful. And we'll turn it over to you.
All right, we're just going to make sure our mics are good here. Okay, it's your singing telegram. You get to start, honey. Yep, okay. Hello, Honorable Mayor and City City Councillors, it is my pleasure as the current Festival of Neighbourhoods Coordinator to personally invite you to join us in celebrating our 30th anniversary, Sunday, November 19th, from 1 p.m. until 3 p.m. at the City Hall Rotunda.
I like to walk around and watch the changes unfold. Every building holds a story of its past, starts out brand new, then gradually grows old.
Since 1994, the Festival of Neighbourhoods has supported and encouraged citizens to host gatherings open to everyone. We offer help to jumpstart new neighbourhoods, reaching for more propinquity.
Just like the seasons, like the color of the trees, each phase highlights tempest it withstood. There's beauty in every single sidewalk crack
In my neighborhood. What is propinquity, you ask? Let me tell you. Propinquity is about kinship and being close to other people. It's about building community where you live to improve your quality of life by making friends and sharing good times together.
Stroll to the farmer's market when the weekend rolls around. Grab a coffee at Serenia Cafe. Later check what's happening in front of City Hall, the museum, Central Library stage.
We also celebrate those neighborhoods who over the years just keep getting better and better. They're pros at propinquity.
From sand hills to country roads, folks from all walks of life come together for the common good. No matter who you are, you will always find a space in my neighborhood. Some living comfortable lives, some struggle to find housing and keep warm. No matter your religious or political beliefs, true neighbors help each other shelter from the storm.
Reach for the Propinquity Challenge by registering your inclusive gatherings with the Festival of Neighborhoods at festivalofneighborhoods.com.
Many people pass through this town once called Berlin for construction jobs or university. Performers seeking fame, startup ventures breaking in to the hub of this great technology.
This year, we're proud to announce that 2 lucky neighborhoods will reach for propinquity by winning up to $20,000 by registering their gatherings and attending the festival celebration. They will be able to put these funds towards their own neighborhood community capital improvement projects.
What will it all look like in 100 years? How will our legacy be seen and understood?
Join us in our celebration and let's mark this amazing milestone together.
It
All comes down to a kind word and a smile in our neighborhood.
Once more time again.
In our
Come
neighborhood.
on, everybody, Barry.
In our neighborhoods.
Well, Heather and Jack, thank you very, very much. That's probably one of the best singing telegrams we've ever had here in the council chamber in my many years, and what an exciting celebration of 30 years of Festival of Neighborhoods coming up, and we look forward to joining you and to all the neighborhood associations here and the sports groups and anybody else that you know that is looking for something great to do on November the 19th. Please join us here in the Rotunda that afternoon. Councillor Deneau, normally, go ahead. I'll cheat.
I just want to say thanks, and I think we need to have a song at every council meeting, because I think it'll make the night go by a lot smoother. So thank you very much for your song. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And now I will give everyone the opportunity who, I know many of you would love to sit here, but you have the benefit of going home and watching us from home over a glass of wine or the beverage of your choice. So we'll take a moment to pause and then restart up. Well, everyone, before we move on then to delegations, I'd like to remind delegations that they have 5 minutes to make their presentation. And here are some guidelines. If you conduct yourself in any of the following manners, it will result in an immediate removal from the meeting: interrupting the mayor or councillor, staff, or other delegations, derogatory statements about the mayor or councillor, staff, or others, and/or hate speech or defamatory comments. One last reminder for delegations: please do not take offense if following the presentation there are no questions from council. This is council's time to really listen and reflect upon the opinions and ideas shared with us from you, our community members. We'll now move on to item 7.2.c, the official plan amendment pertaining to 83 to 87 Weber Street East by Brigade Holdings Corporation. There is one written submission from Stephen Litt from Vive Developments. And we have 3 delegations, and we will start off with Mr. Pierre Chauvin. Sorry? Oh. We came to you quickly, Pierre. You're up. Welcome, Mr. Chauvin.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Sorry about that. I was caught in the crowd out there. I just want to speak to your agenda item this evening regarding your official plan and zoning bylaw amendment application for 83 and 87 Weber Street East on behalf of Vive. With me this evening is Stephen Litt and Mark Hokuluk with Vive Corporation, and I'll ask Stephen to speak to some of the specifics of the proposal. At the last Planning Committee Strategic Initiatives Committee meeting, the decision was to go back to work with staff to look at providing additional community benefits in exchange or to provide for additional density. As we noted and have provided a formal letter to staff, I'm not sure if that's made it your way, but we are prepared to provide up to 24 units of affordable housing units for a 20-year period. And again, that's defined by CMHC. Effectively, what it turns out to be is a 20% discount. There'll be 2 accessible, fully adaptable units and 2 universal design units, as well as 40% energy efficiency to deal with some sustainability issues. This would be with respect to adding the additional density. We're proposing a new height of 32 stories, which originally, you'll recall, was 25 stories, and a change in the floor space ratio from 14 to 18. And ultimately, this results in a net density change of 105 units, so we're proposing 441 total units now. We have provided council via email a proposed draft bylaw that we believe is necessary in order to implement this density. It's one thing to ask about adding height, but it can't just simply be done in a vacuum. There needs to be other adjustments to setbacks in terms of building footprint, and also to ensure that there is an efficient, cost-effective design at the end of the day that will ultimately make this design affordable and attainable to the rental community. And right now, the design measures that perhaps are in place at the city design level does impose some restrictions on us, provide a certain type of design. And what we're proposing is some setbacks that would allow us to build a building that is efficient and is economical to meet the market needs. I just want to also note, and Stephen can speak to this maybe a little more thoroughly because he's had the discussions directly with Kitchener Housing, but there was a direction by the committee members to see if there would be an opportunity to work with a community organization to maintain and manage the affordable housing units. And VIVE has reached out and has a tentative structure, I believe. And again, Mr. Lick can speak to this with Kitchener Housing. And lastly, you'll note there has been an email sent to council members to advise you that our client has circulated all the tenants and is making efforts to relocate all the existing tenants to other locations that they own throughout the city. So with that, maybe I'll turn it over to Mr. Litt to explain further on his arrangements with Kitchener Housing and hopefully answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Litt.
Evening, Council. Thanks for having me. Here primarily for questions, but as Pierre mentioned, yes, we have approached Kitchener Housing for them to source tenants for the building and sort of complete an ongoing, I'll call it an audit, that those folks in the building are within the affordability criteria of the 20% below market. Pierre also mentioned that all the letters to tenants have been circulated, and again, this one's a bit further out, but we'll do our best to relocate those folks, as was Council's concern. I'll speak very briefly, probably best answered via questions, to the change in building design. So we aren't blessed with the best soils in Kitchener, as I'm sure you've heard about groundwater and all this sort of thing. When you simply add height to a building, the building obviously becomes heavier, and at a certain point, the punching load, it wants to punch through the soil. These are very complicated things, high-rise building. I have a feeling that these are probably the most complicated buildings that are commonly built in our community. In order to maintain the 40% energy efficiency, one has to consider all kinds of stuff, primarily the building envelope. So when you have a tower that you simply add floors on top of, it has more exterior wall area compared to floor area. So these are all things that I've gone back to our design team in the past 2 weeks, our hydrogeotechnical consultant, geotechnical consultant, 2 structural engineers, mechanical, electrical, energy design firm, to ensure that we can hit that 40%. And what I'm presenting you here today is what we need to do that. So we can't just go adding floors because it does add incremental cost per square foot you build. What we're presenting here today is one that we can achieve the 25% of the additional units being affordable, the 40% better energy efficiency, and the accessible suites, the trifecta that we hope furthers housing in Kitchener. So.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm thinking actually before we take questions of the two of you, Mr. Stevenson, you did send an email to council late this afternoon. I'm not sure if council has had an opportunity to review it. Wondering if you can summarize the contents of that email so that council can consider that in any questions they have of the delegation, as well as in their deliberations this evening. Sorry, give me 1 second. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So we did summarize and provide the written submissions that were received from VIVE late last week. So council does have that. It will have revised concept plans as well as a letter outlining the proposed community benefits, which is the energy efficiency of 40%, the 24 units over a 20-year period at a 20% discount, and then accessibility, 2 adaptable and 2 universal design units. So what this request is inclusive of is an increase of height of 7 stories to a total of 32, increase unit count to 443, increasing the floor space ratio to 18, and then there's a change to the bedroom layout. So there'd be additional 1-bedroom units, additional 2-bedroom units, and then the revised proposal doesn't have any of the 3-bedroom units that were in the previous version. So if council does want to consider this revised proposal, we did identify that the floor plate of the revised proposal is less compliant to our tall building guidelines, and our recommendation would be to stick to the previous design and tower with the setbacks and then increasing the height beyond that. We just heard from Mr. Litt on his thoughts on that, but that's what we would recommend, and then we would still have a slender, taller building that would comply or more closely comply with the tall building guidelines. So if council were to revise this, we do have the caveat that we need to include to waive further notice of a revised bylaw, and that's provided at the bottom of the email. That would have to be part of the resolution if any bylaw were to change this evening.
Okay, thank you. So we'll deal with questions of the delegation, then we'll deal with any questions of staff. Councillor Michaud? No? Okay. Councillor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for working so hard over the last few weeks to revise your plan. This is really great. Excuse me. I had a question. I appreciate that you had put in information about working with the residents that are going to be displaced from this development. I was wondering about, we've heard in the media over the last little while about the KW Stray Cat group that is also located there. Is there anything at all that you've been able to, have you been in contact with them?
Oh, yeah.
Is there anything at all that you can do to perhaps help them as well?
Yeah, the Stray Cat folks are at our 332 Charles building, so absolutely 100% we're on the hunt for a new location, ideally more permanent than the temporary one they went in. Totally recognizing that what they do is a need for cats. I've got 2 Mowgli and Turbo, love them lots. Yeah, all I can do is continue to look in the market for them and try and help them, give them absolutely as much notice as humanly possible. So we've committed to 6 months notice to them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and that's maybe something we can speak with staff about, because I know that they need special zoning, I think, for...
They do. They went and got, they needed a variance. They have, I believe it's 70 cats in there, so it's, yeah.
Yeah, and the need's only becoming bigger right now, too.
For
Thank
sure.
you.
Councillor Deneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks again for coming back with a revised proposal, or development, sorry. I'm just curious, why the removal of the 3-bedroom units?
I admit, in the hustle and bustle of trying to ensure we had a cost-effective building design, that just disappeared from the plans, but that is in fact still planned, still intended to be offered. I apologize for that being omitted. Yeah.
So there will be 3-bedroom units?
Yep. Correct.
The same amount?
The same number as what was, yeah, exactly what was proposed in our original application.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Jason.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Councillor Deneau asked my first question. Happy to hear that response. We certainly need more family units, size units. The other question I had, and I believe we got an email, I just wanted to confirm. One of my concerns was the 2-meter setback on one of the side yards. It was a westerly side yard. Is that correct? And the updated proposal that you've sent today, you believe you can increase that to 3.2 meters setback?
Correct. It is 2 plus 3.2. So what is that? 5.2? Yeah, we went between 5 and 5.9. So. Yeah, proposing the building now has a step back from the 8-story podium in 3.2 meters on that side yard. I always refer to as street, so the Scott Street side, which would be west. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll have questions of staff as well, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Singh?
Yeah, actually, Councillor Davey confirmed the same, looking at the initial proposal and the revised recommendation. So you've confirmed that's about a 5.9, from 5.2 to 5.9 setback, as opposed to the original ask of a 2.01. So you're almost essentially more than doubling what you're, you were trying to anticipate the building envelope that would be required. And just to Mr. Garrett, the original proposal was 7.9, and that had the staff recommendation?
Mr. Stevenson?
Through you, Mr. Chair. The original west side yard was 7.9 meters, which was 63% compliant with the tall building guidelines. So staff were supportive of 63% compliance. The revised proposal that we received last week had a 2-meter setback, and that was only 9.47% compliant, so less than 10%.
Yeah, but now with what the proponent is saying that they can likely get to, and that would be part of the amended bylaw, I'm assuming, is that they could get to 5.2 to 5.9?
Yeah, 5 to 5.9, yeah, was what was emailed, circulated to council.
So I believe...
Would staff be able to comment on that, or...?
I believe that bylaw was provided at 7:08 p.m. today, so we haven't had a chance to do an analysis in tall building guidelines of these revised side yards. And that's part of the challenge of changes at this stage in the process, that we can't have a full time to do the full evaluation. So I can't comment on increasing beyond. I will say that the original proposal at 7.9 was already a reduction to 63% compliance.
Okay. No, I appreciate your comment, and I'm not faulting staff not to be able to answer. I'm just trying to get a context of the increase from the 2 to the 5, and if there would be now some staff support towards that. But I understand the shortness of time that staff can't provide that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Clancy.
Yeah, maybe for staff, is there time flexibility to give this? Like, I got all these emails after 5 when we were already in a meeting. Is it possible, what's our timelines at? Because I know that the province has legislated timelines that we are mandated. Where are we falling within that right now, Mr. Stevenson?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, a decision has to be made on these applications by October 30th, or else we would be in a position where we'd have to issue a partial refund of the application fees to the applicant. We are required by legislation to issue those refunds, whether it's requested or not by the applicant.
So that would, I guess that's, we don't have a council meeting on the 30th, so we would.
We could have a special council meeting that day.
Is there an openness to a deferral to the 30th, just to allow for some of this analysis? I don't know.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly staff can, if that's the direction of council, we would be able to do that. I do know that the October 30th agenda is also going to be quite full as well. So just with that caveat, we could bring it back in 2 weeks if that's council's direction.
Can I move a motion to defer to the 30th?
Well, not at this point yet, because
Okay.
but I'll come back to you.
Thank you. Sorry, I'd just like to hear more. I think part of it is understanding the tall building guidelines and some of the concerns raised. You know, I haven't had time to read all the different documents that were sent, and so maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, so in essence, the point of contention for this particular design for a tall building relates to the setback for the tower. So in order to ensure that tall buildings remain livable, we have a calculation that we do on all tall buildings that has a setback of the tower from the property lines. And what that does is it allows for the buildings to be designed and so that people living within those buildings, they're not 100% overlook if a site next door develops. The way that we apply our guidelines is you have to comply to the shared property line. So in the case, if we relax our standards too much on one particular site and get too close to the property line, it could limit the ability of the next door property to develop in the same way. So that's why we try to have a fair application of a setback for all towers on all sites.
Thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Sorry.
Questions of staff? Okay. So I have some questions of the delegation before we go to staff. And there's also Mr. Paul Ron here. I think he's here to make a delegation as well, so we'll come to that shortly. I guess Mr. Chauvin, Mr. Litt, I guess I'm just trying to understand some of the timing around things. I understand that our staff didn't hear back until Wednesday evening, which didn't really give them much time to respond to the submissions that you made ahead of council getting the agenda on Friday. And then we were getting, as has been noted, sort of further suggestions as late as 7:08 today. And so I'm just trying to understand the rationale on the timings, because it's not making for good planning. So I'm wondering if you can comment on that.
I'll be the first to admit this is not the best approach. I made it very clear before that this is not the best. It's not good planning to negotiate on the spot. But when you have an applicant in a housing crisis, where average building permit activity in Ontario was down 9%, which actually I thought was low. In the region of Waterloo, it's down 60% and greater than that, and you have an applicant before you that wants to build mid-market rental housing. I think it's worth making it a priority, moving faster. Halifax agrees with us. Halifax just actually reduced their tall building considerations and is providing expedited approvals for repeat clients. So I totally understand and appreciate the tall building setback. The tall building guidelines. That's never to be considered in a vacuum, specifically in the circumstance. If you look towards the Cedar Street side, you have a 1.3 acre parcel that was offered for sale last year for $14 million. That's easily, you could place 2 towers on that site further away. Just on my way here, I had a conversation with the next door neighbor, Ken Immigration. His only concern was the construction-related vibration and such. To the other side, it's been consolidated. It's a 0.75 acre site. The neighboring building's 12 stories. You have lots of orientation. So we've done this analysis, and our consultant team thinks that this is a very viable approach. In our 8 completed projects, they're all slabs, and I think that they're a very high-quality design. I would hope urban design folks agree as well. We still have an urban design provision as proposed in the zoning, so we will work with staff to ensure that, yes, it's not ideal, but it will still work, and it will still be beautiful, and you have our commitment that, along with affordability, we believe in high design. So I agree this is moving fast, but if we don't move fast, I truly believe we have some real structural concerns in housing locally. So.
Okay, Mr. Litt, as we've heard, I guess I have the next question is a 2-part question. We have until the 30th where we could potentially, if this was deferred, give this further consideration so that staff can have an appropriate opportunity to work with you and in a timely manner give this appropriate consideration. Do you have any concerns with that, number one? And secondly, if we needed to go to the next council meeting, if there is a mechanism, and this will be my question of staff, if there is a mechanism for you to waive your right to getting half of your fees back, would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, I would never ask for half of the feedback. I mean, we're local, we support local, we love the city, so I would never ask for feedback. I just truthfully, honestly think that it's just another 2-week delay, right, on 430 rental units in Kitchener. So I hear you loud and clear, but delay is a delay. So
sure, but at the end of the day, we need to do our due diligence. My last question to you, Mr. Litt, is: are you planning on building this yourself, or will you potentially be selling this property?
Building it. As I said at committee. Yeah.
Okay, in the event that you do decide to sell it, can you talk to us about the mechanism, about how you will ensure that the commitments you made to this council will become part of any subsequent agreement of purchase and sale?
That's a great question. I mean, respectfully, in the past 2 years, everything that's gone before council about donations and tie such a covenant to the sale of a property.
Okay, thank you. Those are the questions I have. I have a couple other questions from councillors. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned some agreement with Kitchener Housing. Can you just give some more details on that?
Yeah, so the notion is that when we market units for lease, we go on all the typical advertising, media, Kijiji, etc. Kitchener Housing has access to a certain link of a database of folks that actually need the housing and has the ability to actually audit that as a third party. And it's just sort of, again, developers are always viewed as mean, nasty folks, and so this is a partnership and hopefully sort of a long relationship that allows them to source tenants and then on an ongoing basis ensure that their income remains at the threshold that is defined as affordable for their income.
So I understood that the Kitchener Housing, when I was on the board anyway, now this may have changed, they only had access through the region's list, which were for deeply affordable rent geared to income.
Correct, yeah.
And is that if that's what you're talking about 80% of market value, you're not talking about those rent geared to income.
Yeah, I'm talking about a mid-market affordable, you can call it what you want. It's roughly $500 below market. We need new systems and new processes to audit and find appropriate housing for folks of all levels of affordability, right? We're talking sort of 40 to 60th percentile in our decile presentation, so this is a new thing, and it's a new partnership that we're excited about. So
I'm just curious what that database is that they're working from. So maybe I'll read that. I mean, if we have a deferral, it will allow me to reach out to Kitchener Housing.
For sure. I think it's as simple as pay stub, income verification, that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you. Just on that, again, with your discussions with KHI, apart from them being essentially an auditor to be able to see that the units that you're proposing as affordable continue to maintain that way, and they're meeting the right type of fit for the families that are most deserving of that subsidy. Have you also had one of the things that was asked from the last meeting? I think Councillor Ioannidis rightly had raised this, is having some confidence where we know what type of housing provider, not-for-profit housing provider that VIVE could coordinate with or partner with to ensure the management of these housing units. Have you had any conversations, and can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, I think we're just in the infancy of the talks, right, with Kitchener Housing. I'm not sure what access to staffing horsepower they have to provide a further level of property management or support for those folks. But we're in the early days, and we look forward to the discussion. So to answer your question, no, nothing specifically.
But is there amenability on your part to
100%.
seek out those type of partnerships?
For sure.
Got to hear.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the questions we have.
Thanks.
Okay, if I can invite Mr. Paul Ron forward.
Hello, Your Worship, and council members and city staff. I'm from 165 Duke Street East. I'm about a block away from the proposed high-rise development, and I unequivocally oppose it at 8387 Weber East. Mainly, I'm really troubled by the city adopting high-rise structures in terms of long-term affordability. Like it's all being, there's this sense of panic around we got to build these structures because of affordability. And the issue is how affordable are they going to be over the long term, given I made a delegation on the 19th of December in favor of the structure at Duke and the 8-story apartment at Duke and Madison. I'm strongly in favor of it. And that building high-rise structures in the context of declining net energy issues and climate destabilization is not a wise choice. and that. And and the whole definition of affordability troubles me, that it's set at 80% of market rent, the market rate for rent, and not at, say, 30% of one's income, especially one's income as a earning a full-time job, earning minimum wage, and that. And so, and I'm just wondering, I've heard about, 40% more energy efficiency. But how does it compare in energy efficiency to a 4 to 6 story structure? And I've been to City Council with articles. In my deputation, I referred to articles that compared the energy efficiency of high-rise structures to low-rise structures and the contrast, but also the density issues, that you can achieve similar levels of density with low-rise structures and that. So,
Sir, excuse me, there's a delegation speaking. Sir, there's a delegation speaking. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so that's what I'm interested in, is, in the next 15, 20, 30 years, will those structures be affordable to maintain? Will we have energy, enough energy to maintain them, given the state of oil and gas exploration, the great decline in, findings, especially over the last 10 years. And also, in terms of renewable energy, trying to, the problems of bringing up to the scale of our present energy use. And Simon Michaud of the Finnish Geological Survey has a 1,000-page report outlining the difficulties of, trying to trying to meet our present energy needs through renewable energy, especially in the use of rare earth minerals, materials like that. So I just want to make a final note about affordability issue. When Toronto went to retrofit high-rise buildings back in 2008, 2009, under Mayor David Miller, the cost of retrofitting high-rise buildings, a 20-story high-rise building, would be between $4 to $5 million. And this is in 2008 dollars. And that, so that's what I'm worried about, is how affordable are those structures going to be into the future, way beyond my life and that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We do have some questions for you, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Councillor Chapman.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming in this evening. You're touching on 2 points that I just wanted to go over with you again. First, the question of affordability, and the second one has to do with the environmental impact. But when it comes to affordability, I mean, what's the CMHC holds affordable at 80% of market value, which is what the developer is proposing here. So what to you would be affordable?
I see as affordable 30% of one's income as doing the minimum wage as a full-time worker.
So that's a long way from what we're talking about here, actually.
Yeah.
And as far as the environmental perspectives that you're concerned about, or from an environmental perspective, you talk about renewable energy, you talk about lower rise buildings rather than high rise.
Yes.
So as far as meeting our targets of intensification, what would you propose in this regard?
That we build at a much lower level, from 6 stories, for the sake of long-term sustainability, and we build over a greater part of the city, and that. We certainly have a lot of prime development land along Victoria Street, between King, over to Lancaster, and Conestoga Parkway. That could be one area. And certainly, having walked up King, you know, for I guess 3 years now, there's a lot of available land for doing that. In terms of like at Wellington and King, places like that, and designing. I guess it requires a lower setback in that, so you can fit more units at the ground level on a piece of land or that.
My final question has to be with the original proposal, which was 25 stories.
Yeah.
Would you be more supportive of that original proposal?
For the sake of long-term affordability, in terms of energy consumption, things like that, no. I was opposed to it even then.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Just one question on the affordability piece. I would agree with you, 30% of income that's a more appropriate level, and $500 discount is certainly not affordable in the current environment for some. My question to you is, the decision before us is to have some units at a $500 discount or 0 units at a $500 discount, full market rate. That's our decision. So I guess I would put it back to you. You're in our role. What's the decision that you make?
Well, I see it as a long-term thing. We have to rethink, especially at the federal government level. The federal government as the currency provider, getting back into the public housing business like it was back in up till March 1995 when Paul Martin got it, the funding for public housing and that. And there are a lot of examples of low-rise buildings that were built, especially by the Ontario government in the mid-'80s to about 1995, that are part of the missing middle, as they call it, like 5-story, up to 8-story structures.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate you bringing in your perspective, and I think we would agree that the other levels are going to be a lot of work in this area as well. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for coming in.
You're welcome.
Okay, are there any further questions of staff? Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Notwithstanding the motion, the floor is to question to staff. I'm not sure the suggested motion that was put in our email was for the changes of the original recommendation. Would you be able to put together an amendment based on the applicant's latest revision with the additional setback and the 3-bedroom units? Because I would choose to move that at the appropriate time.
Ms. McDonald? Oh, sorry, no. Sorry. You're coming up as Ms. McDonald. Go ahead, Mr. Stevenson.
I was going to let Leslie do it. Through you, Mayor, and to Councillor Davey. So we attached a revised bylaw to my email that would allow for what would be a 7-story additional height to the previous podium and tower design. Is that what you're speaking of, or the bylaw that was provided at 7 o'clock?
Did the bylaw at 7 o'clock, was that, that included the 5-meter setback and the additional, and I'm not sure if it's explicit in the bylaw, but the additional 3-bedroom units is proposed?
Yes, so if I'm looking at a revised bylaw, I note that what was sent at 7 o'clock, so I think that's the one we're talking about, 3 sub 6 has been changed from 7.5 meters to 5 meters, and then there was changes from 7.9 meters to 5.9 meters, and then the easterly side yard setback reduction from 4.2 and 4.9, and then there was a strike through requested for the rear yard setbacks of 8.5 meters and 9 meters. So that's what's been requested by Vive Development.
Okay, and I guess the question to the clerk then, or maybe you, Mr. Stevenson, if I were to move that, that would need to be written. So is that something that, I guess, staff, can you prepare that now, or prepare that for later in the evening, or how would that work?
So go ahead and reply to that, and then I'll comment.
Right. Yeah.
So through the chair, we would need time to draft that amendment, working with planning staff.
Okay, I'll think on that. Thank you.
So, Council, it's a little out of the ordinary for me to comment early on in the process, but I do want to say, you know, we all acknowledge, and I've been supportive of the fact that, you know, there is a need for us to move in a timely manner in terms of housing. And I was supportive of this coming forward to today. But I have to say that I have grave concern to be planning on the fly, quite frankly, at the last minute around the horseshoe with proposals flying even after we start the start of our council meeting. And I would strongly urge council that since we have until the 30th, I know it's going to be a busy day, but that staff have the opportunity to work with the applicant, understand where they're coming from, and that we focus our energies today, if we want to give any direction to staff in terms of that discussion, but that there is an opportunity for that to come forward, to be debated, and for that to come forward. And so I would urge council to give that serious consideration. Go ahead, Councillor Singh.
Yeah, so to that, I don't disagree with you at all. I think Councillor Clancy had already indicated her preference to place a deferral motion to the 30th, which is a standing committee day, so it could be special council day at that point as well, where we would not be into contravention of the Planning Act for the time period. Would that take precedence over other discussion, the deferral?
So if Councillor Clancy put her hand up, she would come next in the discussion. But I just wanted, because Councillor Davey did ask a question, and before staff start trying to craft some last-minute wording at this point in time, I felt that needed to be said and put on the floor. Councillor Davey?
Yeah, just to speed things up, I'm comfortable with that, and I guess I just give staff that direction then to add those additional items when this returns on the 30th, and I'll support the amendment. I'll support the deferral.
Okay, Mr. Stevenson, you wanted to add something, and then no? Okay. So I guess you know, do folks have any other comments that you would like to provide for staff to consider before we deal with the deferral motion as part of this? No other comments? So the only thing that I would add is that, you know, from my perspective, when we originally went down this route, the intent was to go up as the quid pro quo, quite frankly, to deal with the fact that we were getting some affordable housing, and I appreciate the efforts of Mr. Litt to consider that. I think when we start, you know, quite frankly, making adjustments to things like the separation between buildings, when we start looking at potentially things that, you know, that were on the table. I'm glad to hear that the 3 bedrooms are back on the table. But when you start looking at things like the podium and so on, in my view, that should stay in place or as close to where it was previously for the reasons outlined. And I certainly would be looking for that when a final recommendation, not a final recommendation, when options come forward for our consideration on the 30th. So I would just flag that for staff's consideration and for Mr. Litt's consideration in the intervening 2-week period. So now I'll come to you, Councillor Clancy, for the deferral motion.
Yeah, I do want to thank that I'm grateful that like a lot of these considerations and a lot of these thoughts and concerns that we have are going forward. Just as a council member, I feel more comfortable when I have time to sit and read things and ask questions of staff. So I'm going to move that we defer this item to our meeting on October 30th.
So I will take that you're moving it for a deferral to a special council meeting on the 30th, because we'll have to add that onto that agenda. Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Councillor Davey. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to item 9.1, and Councillor O'Dooney, I should probably have you chair this piece because I'm going to be bringing the motion forward, but we do have one delegation, so maybe I'll just let the delegation come forward and then I'll pass it over to you. That gives you a minute to get your head around it. Mr. Kevin White. Is Mr. White here? Welcome, Mr. White.
Good evening, Council. I am speaking on behalf of Waterloo Region Yes in My Backyard this evening, or WRUMB. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for letting us speak to this important topic. We are excited to hear that the City of Kitchener is considering allowing fourplexes as of right throughout the city. While more will need to be done to address our housing shortage and more will need to be done outside of supply to ensure affordability, this is an unambiguous step in the right direction. Allowing for more housing near the downtown but maintaining much lower density in other neighbourhoods prices people out of these lower density neighbourhoods. This denies them the opportunities that those neighbourhoods can provide. It can also mean younger people are unable to afford to stay in the neighbourhood where they grew up and have friends, family, and networks. Currently, our growth in population and in housing in our downtown hides an opposite trend in other neighbourhoods. Last year, the record noted that the Forest Heights and Highview suburbs in West Kitchener lost 1% of residents. Their housing stock grew by 1% in a city where the population grew by 10% and dwellings grew by 8%. Allowing for fourplexes in these neighbourhoods can address their decline in population and allow these neighbourhoods to play a role in addressing our housing shortage. Infill housing is also important for sustainability. Fourplexes and sixplexes can more easily be built using more environmentally friendly material for buildings, such as wood. Perhaps more importantly, allowing fourplexes throughout our neighbourhoods is an alternative to sprawl and makes public transit and active transportation more viable options. Denser housing is also less expensive to service than sprawling suburbs. Many on Council are also rightly concerned about displacement. We can't address displacement without also addressing the demand for housing that is at the root of it. When we don't build enough housing in some select neighbourhoods, all that demand is pushed into those neighbourhoods that do allow more housing. Allowing for more housing throughout the city takes some of this pressure off and can possibly reduce displacement in the downtown. This makes fourplexes a good complement to the other measures the City of Kitchener or region should consider, such as rental replacement rules for new developments and a renoviction bylaw like Hamilton is considering. We look forward to hearing more details of this fourplex proposal in the coming year. We'll need to pay attention to the details. Requirements such as maximum heights, setbacks, floor space ratio requirements, and parking minimums can deter or increase the costs of such smaller scale developments. For example, in Vancouver, progressive economist Mark Lee recommended a 1.5 to 2.0 floor space ratio for its missing middle housing to work, but the city only approved 1.0. Consequently, city staff only predicts 150 multiplex projects in a year in a city as large as Vancouver. That's not enough. We need to prioritize more housing options over ensuring new housing looks the same as single detached homes. Allowing for fourplexes throughout the City of Kitchener is an important step in the right direction. Ensuring that this missing middle housing type is feasible by not tacking on onerous other requirements is key. In addition, we would be delighted if the City of Kitchener showed leadership in going further than the federal government is requesting, allowing for more than 4 units on a lot. We also note that the Housing for All strategy is looking at zoning for lodging homes, giving the City of Kitchener the opportunity to allow this more affordable housing type throughout the city as well. We are thankful to the City of Kitchener for this motion and to the federal government for helping spur this on.
Okay, thank you. We do have some questions for you, sir. Councillor Singh.
Just really want to appreciate you coming forward as a delegate. Far too often, it's the opposite that we hear from residents who are quite enraged with development proposals that may be close proximity to where they reside or beside where they live. So you hear one-sided kind of advocacy about, hey, don't impede on my neighborhood, don't impede on my quality of life. But what you're saying is change needs to give if housing is a priority. Would that be a good summary of what you're presenting?
In part, yes, I think so.
Excellent. So some of which is, of course, I'm really thankful that the mayor is bringing this forward. It's something that's being considered in other cities, and we definitely don't want to be reactionary. We want to, tread new path in making sure that we can create housing opportunities for our residents. Is it what would be your concern or your response to some of the opposition that we may and will continue to hear about parking considerations and the surety of these fourplexes are on wide lots to make sure that they're appropriate setbacks? Because in my mind, I'm just not to bias you, is if we're true to what we're trying to do, we got to create opportunities everywhere, not just key pockets or some off chances that something can fit based on what we would like.
I think I would have similar sentiment to that, in that the infrastructure surrounding our residential areas also needs to support that, and that I suppose that has to happen in concert with, of course, the province and the region as well, in providing adequate public transit and accessible venues for the allocation of all resources, whether that's sort of standard goods as groceries and pharmacies and healthcare, but or even having green space and parks. It's an immense question, but if we refuse to allow that in some neighborhoods, those neighborhoods end up being exclusive, and I think often one of the arguments that comes up is about neighborhood character, and if I think of a neighborhood character as being exclusive, I would feel problematic being a part of that neighborhood personally.
Excuse me, sir, if I can ask you not to do that in the council chamber. Thank you.
But I think we are able to witness across the region, anecdotally or empirically, that we're experiencing a lot of challenges, and there's a need for, I don't know, to use a kind of buzzword speak, I guess, like a total buy-in from the community to help find solutions to this.
I love that, a total buy-in from the community to find a solution to housing. Thank you very much for the sincerity of your answer. You could tell that you were sincere with it, that it's not easy. You've got to weigh a lot of options. It's not going to make everyone comfortable, but something's got to give. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Councillor Clancy.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to hear from you. I know it's a thoughtful group and you're a thoughtful person. Do you have examples of other cities that have done this and the impact it's had? Like positive or otherwise? Of allowing the 4 units as of right? Do you have other examples?
Perhaps Martin Asling, one of the co-founders of WRU, can clarify it more.
I think I would...
Sorry, Martin, can you just introduce yourself?
I'm sorry. My name is Martin Asling. I'm also a member of Waterloo Region, yes, in my backyard. I think I would point to Auckland, New Zealand, and Minneapolis as other jurisdictions that have allowed more missing middle housing as of right. And to go back to the comment about parking, one of the keys in Minneapolis has been also dealing with parking minimums and minimizing those as well, so that they're more feasible.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you so much for coming in tonight. I echo Councillor Singh's comments. And I guess my first question will be, will you come back again? When we're having evenings where we have people that are perhaps going to present about being upset about this going on in their neighborhoods.
We are a housing advocacy group, so yes.
Good. Okay, that's good to hear. I was wondering if you could just comment quickly to, I've been reading a lot lately about in Toronto how they have really put themselves into a real pickle in terms of so many single-family housing only allowed in many parts of Toronto, and I'm wondering if maybe is that the kind of thing that you've been looking at and thinking, my goodness, we need to be making a change here?
I think certainly one of the first things that motivated our group was a book about Toronto called House Divided, and it dealt with the so-called yellow belt as opposed to the green belt, which is very positive. The yellow belt is land that is devoted for single detached homes, and thankfully the City of Toronto is also moving in the right direction in some respects. So it's good to see the City of Kitchener also moving away from the yellow belt idea.
Thank you.
Councillor Ioannidis.
Yeah, thank you for, thanks Mayor Vermanovic, and thank you for coming in. I guess, providing your input, I guess one of the things we hear a lot here on members on council is we hear a lot about opposition and to, let's say, developments of even just duplexing. And the argument that I want to put forward is, how do you solve a housing crisis if you're not willing to have open-minded to having many tools in your toolbox to mitigate some of these the housing shortages, in particular, especially when you have a countryside line where you can't really expand beyond that. So what do you say to those individuals? Because I just keep having a hard time trying to explain the fact that housing is really extremely unaffordable, but it's extremely unaffordable for everyone. So it's just not just the marginalized; it's for everyone. So just out of curiosity, how would you address that?
I think that's a pretty immense question overall. I suppose my personal short and overly simplified answer to that would be when we're looking at housing and when we consider equity and to think of equity in general with this regard. If we are to rely exclusively on policy, we're going to miss a lot of people, and equity requires that we make accommodations to meet people where they are, and frequently that means that we can't adhere to policy in order to meet those needs. So it's asking a lot of everyone involved in that discussion who has their own stake and interest in what they're hoping to preserve or protect or have a vision for. But in terms of, with the resources we have, what are the things we can do is I think, the best starting point, as opposed to specifically requesting that we don't do things or that we can't do anything about it. I realize I'm going in kind of very broad
yeah, I know, it was a big question.
But
I was hoping you could help me.
In terms of, but I do think that somewhere in that statement about equity and needing to often work around policy to meet people where they are, if the policies are not successfully resolving the issues, then the policies need to be reviewed more strictly, and we have to consider how they are being interpreted and imposed, I guess.
Okay. I don't want to get too deep into this. I do apologize.
We'll go for lunch sometime.
More of a simplistic answer. But I guess I'm just trying to position how, as ourselves, our tools. I know we have to follow policies, and we do have to follow certain criteria. But I mean, and if we do that, what other tools are out there for us if we don't do this, really, to tackle such a housing crisis?
That's a tough question.
Yeah,
yeah, that's a really tough question. I don't know.
Okay, sir, this is the third time I've asked. If you want to be a delegation, you could have registered. We'd happily hear from you. So please respect the process. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a difficult question to answer. It's one advantage of this proposal is that maybe there's actually a better chance for buy-in because it is across the board. It is something where you can't say, I don't want this in my neighborhood. Well, it's going to be in every neighborhood, and everyone's kind of on. It's easier to get everyone on the same page than if you have that kind of across the board approach. That might be kind of going back to a previous question, but I think that's how I would answer.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the presentation. And I think what I like about what you're saying is that you're kind of bringing all the pieces together, right? So it's not just about let's build fourplexes, but let's look at things such as renovictions and, lodging homes. Martin, you and I have been working on that. Rent controls. I mean, all of these things are very important. So how, in your mind, do we ensure that we actually do meet people where they are? So it's fine to allow fourplexes, and I'm totally in favor of this motion. But I do have some questions and concerns, and one of them is affordability. So we hear affordable is 80% of market value. How can we ensure that these fourplexes are actually affordable for more people than just those that can afford the 80% of market value? And that we aren't displacing people in order to build fourplexes. Like, what tools these are questions I'm going to actually ask of staff, but do you see virtue in having a shopping list of things that we want to include as we pass this motion?
I think fourplexes are one small part of the puzzle. They won't by themselves address affordability, but they'll address a piece of it. Single detached homes are the most unaffordable housing type, and fourplexes are more likely to be affordable than single detached homes. With that said, I think there needs to be a lot more done to make housing affordable. There needs to be a substantial investment in social housing or public housing. There needs to be, you mentioned rent controls, and the rental replacement bylaws are really very important as well. One of the points that we made here is that when you have shortages of housing, it exacerbates the problems of displacement as well. So fourplexes could, as a whole, mitigate that problem, but there needs to be a lot more done as well.
Okay. Yeah. Did you want to add anything? No?
I think that's a reasonable summary. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with that, those are all the questions we have. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hernandez, do you have a question? Okay, so at this point, actually, I'll switch seats with Councillor O'Dooney and introduce the motion, and then you can ask your questions and so on.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Ioannidis, you still have your question, or do we move on? Okay, fantastic. We're moving over to item 9.1. Over to you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Chair O'Dooney and Council. It gives me pleasure to bring forward this motion that will be moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Singh as chair of our planning committee. And this is an important issue, and so I will take time to read the motion, if you indulge me. Whereas Kitchener approved the Housing for All strategy in 2020 with a commitment to enabling more housing options and supply across the full housing spectrum, and whereas between 2016 and 2021, Kitchener experienced a population increase of 9.9% and is forecasted to grow by 52% to 409,200 people by 2051. And whereas in March 2023, Kitchener Council approved a commitment to the Ontario government's housing pledge that included a provincially mandated housing target for Kitchener of 35,000 units by 2031. And whereas Kitchener approved a missing middle and affordable housing study in April of 2023 that, amongst other things, recommended increasing density permissions citywide to enable an increased supply of missing middle housing. And whereas the Government of Canada's Housing Accelerator Fund grant program represents an opportunity for the city to refine the policies, procedures, and processes to manage development in an effort to increase the supply of housing consistent with our Housing for All strategy and our housing pledge. And whereas the City of Kitchener currently permits as-of-right building permits for up to 3 residential units a lot, and whereas the City of Kitchener would like to provide more affordable housing options by reducing unnecessary barriers, and whereas Bill 23 amended the Planning Act to create a new provincial threshold for what is permitted and moving forward as-of-right zoning to meet planned minimum density targets, therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to propose a zoning bylaw amendment that would permit as-of-right permissions for up to 4 residential units on a property wherever zoning permits single detached, semi-detached, or street townhouse dwelling units on sufficient lot sizes, and report back to Council in Q1 2024. The implementing zoning bylaw may address criterion such as servicing capacity to support the proposed units. And as I said, this is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Singh. And Mr. Chair, if I can just briefly speak to it. This is an issue that's not before Council for the first time. In fact, as has been noted in the motion, in April 2023, we did approve our missing middle and affordable housing study. But that would have seen this work coming forward in 2024 to begin with. As we know, we've been working hard, and staff have been working hard with the federal government with respect to consideration of our Housing Accelerator Fund application. And if one both reads the communication that we've received from Minister Fraser, as well as notes the other municipalities that have been successful in their applications in terms of the announcements that have occurred thus far, This is one of the factors that they have considered early on. And so I think it's appropriate for us, in order to get a head start, to not wait for an announcement, but rather to demonstrate our commitment in this regard as a municipality, and to both signal to our community about the importance of doing this, but also give council direction to staff to prioritize this, so that it does come back in Q1 2024 and allows us to potentially start seeing the fruits of this initiative as early as next summer, which, as we know, is really the height of our construction season in Canada. And so I do hope that we can send a strong message as a council tonight, with hopefully a unanimous support of this. There will obviously be some work that needs to be done between now and when this comes forward with detail. And I know some members of council may have some ideas for staff to consider as part of this, and staff no doubt have some work. But I've seen some great housing developments in cities across the country, where, quite frankly, you would never guess there was 4 residential units in a house and on an individual piece of property. And so, seeing this introduced in our community, I think would build on the work that we've done up till now with, as of right, 3 units, whether it's a duplex in an ADU or something similar. So those would be my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. So we'll start out with questions first before we move over to comments, starting out with Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you. I guess my questions, because I do have some concerns, in particular with funding, and I noticed that in Mississauga, they turned down this similar kind of motion, and part of the rationale was the lack of certainty of receiving the housing accelerator funding. So just can I get a little bit more clarity on that? Is there a risk of us losing some of that if we don't be proactive?
Anyone care to take that? Okay. Mr. Reedman?
Yes, through the chair. So the minister was actually on the local CBC a few days ago and was saying that the Housing Accelerator Fund is not a guarantee, that you have to be competitive and as competitive as your neighbors to ensure that you get your fair share of funding. And so I do think there would be a risk if we aren't looking at really progressive opportunities through this work.
Okay, that's okay. My next question is with regards to Bill 23 and how this would help relate to that, because I've heard in the media and anecdotally that if we don't provide less barriers and create more housing, we're not going to be made whole. So I wonder if that is that a concern as well with regards to the development charges and everything else?
Anyone care to take that? Okay.
So through the chair, certainly nothing specifically has been said in terms of the link to Bill 23 and sort of the provincial commitment to making municipalities whole. I know that review is still underway, but certainly I think the province looks at things as well, and so I won't want to speculate in terms of anything on that front, but definitely anything that we can do to continue to show that we're supportive of housing, I think is a positive thing.
Okay, I guess.
Hold on, Mayor Barry wanted to chime in with that as well?
Yeah, maybe just briefly on both of the last two questions from Councillor Ioannidis. Excuse me. I think I would just add that from a federal funding point of view, we're hearing anecdotally that the fund is oversubscribed. In other words, there's more requests than there dollars. And so I think one thing that the minister has made clear, both in conversations with him as well as with his staff, is that those municipalities who are aspirational in terms of the work that they're doing will likely be, reviewed in a more favorable way going forward, because they do need to distinguish between those who are aspirational and those who aren't. I think the other question that you've raised is something I'll be talking about later on in the agenda under mayoral business and updates. But the province, in particular, Minister Calandra, did ask that mailed the mayors back on September 15th, asking for our input into the Housing Task Force recommendations. And these kinds of things, particularly more intensification, is the kind of thing that the province is looking for as well, as we work to address these needs in communities like ours.
Okay. Yeah, because what I thought I've been hearing is with regards to if we're not very being proactive in creating more housing for our communities, that it's going to be forced upon us regardless in some capacity, is my understanding. So, and then if we're not doing it, it's sort of jeopardizing our funding, as you had mentioned, being oversubscribed. So that's kind of where my concern is, because I'd rather be on the forefront than sitting on the sidelines. But I guess no one can really give me a definite answer on that one, or you care to, Mayor Vermanvik?
Okay, Mayor Barrett.
I don't know that I can give a definite answer. I think obviously as we continue to have our discussions and do our advocacy work with both orders of government, provincial and federal, I think it's fair to say that both orders are aspirational in terms of where they would like to see municipalities go with these. Ultimately, what they decide. I mean, you get that information as much as I do. But again, I think as a council, we've demonstrated our desire to be part of the solution and take up space where it makes sense for us, and that was demonstrated through our Housing for All strategy. And I think this is just the next step in that process.
Okay, thank you. I know my time's up. I will key back in. Thank you. I have more questions.
Thank you very much. Let's remember to stay to our time limit. Over to Councillor Singh.
I'll do my best. So I'm hoping that, I'll reserve my comments, I'll come back later, but I'm hoping as part of the overall review that's being directed from Mayor Vivanovich's motion to staff, that they would also help to provide some context. So I'll ask if this could be included, some of which may be, I think one of the delegates raised it, the fact that, we can't always accommodate affordable housing in high-rise buildings, and some of it, or much of that burden, may be borne by low-rise development. Would staff be able to contextualize as part of the overall report cost of development or building cost in a tall building when it's affordable, as opposed to what the construction cost may be in a low-rise stick construction that would be more towards a fourplex?
Okay.
So through the chair, staff can certainly endeavor to find out that information and be in a position to provide it back to council in Q1 of 2024. Okay.
The other is, cities are very much like, I think, living organisms. They adapt, they morph, as they grow. We don't have to look far. We can look at large urban areas who have already done this. Looking at Toronto, looking at some of the other or the more denser cities, where we can be more proactive rather than waiting to get there and figuring out a solution when the city's already kind of pre-built, as opposed to doing it now. Would staff look at those best practices? Not necessarily peer communities, because they're struggling with the same. They may not be ready to take those higher risks, but cities that are further more developed than perhaps where we are in density.
So through the chair, yes, that would be part of our scope of work, would be to do a best practices review and scan other jurisdictions across Canada and internationally to understand how they have had success in this area and what that looks like.
Okay, and on top of it, I think some of the issues and concerns that may be raised is as opposed to parking, right? How do you fit the right amount of units in a residential neighborhood where there may not be parking availability? Would staff also look at new technologies that are available where, you start seeing in residences mechanical parking, which are not that expensive, where you can accommodate, vertical parking in a garage, and that perhaps could be as part of the, a reference point to allow the extra units in a smaller lot than what we currently allow.
I'll suggest leaving your mic on as well.
So through the chair, yes, we can certainly explore that opportunity too.
Okay. The other is related to, and I think this is just an opportunity for all of us to really outline to staff where we need to direct our staff to look at creating opportunities for increased housing. One of which, it's a little bit outside of what the motion directs staff to do, and I was initially thinking of adding as an amendment, but I think we need to keep the motion fairly clean and perhaps add through comments or perhaps even a separate motion at a later time, which is it's an opportunity for us to see denser low-rise development in our built-up neighborhoods, not outside in a green belt, but in our built-up neighborhoods. And that can be accomplished through smaller lots as well. Like currently, in many of our zones, we have a minimum lot frontage of 9 meters and side lot of 1.2 meter. That doesn't always allow, smaller units where the market is now supporting. Would staff also be able to take a look at that as well?
So through the chair, yes, that would be part of the review that we undertake. I would like to remind council that we do currently permit 3 units as of right across the city. And so we have looked at some of these considerations previously with respect to lot width, lot area, and parking requirements. So we do have a good body of work to expand on as we look at 4 units as of right and those opportunity sites across the city.
Yeah, but we'll learn upon our experience. It's one thing to allow it. It's 2 if there's no uptake. And if there's no uptake, that means just allowing it is enough. That means we have to change those parameters where the market has to be able to build upon those parameters. And we'll look at those. Excellent, thank you. I'll reserve the rest for my comments.
Thank you very much. Moving over to Councillor Deneau.
Just a comment.
Oh, just a comment? Okay, we'll come back to comments. Heading over to Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have data on the uptake of ADUs and triplexes?
So through the chair, I believe as recently as today, we did ask our chief building official for those stats. So I believe in 2021, we had 4 that were built. In 2022, I believe it was 15. And year to date, we're at, I think, 25 for 2023. So we have seen a gradual increase in uptake as the market has responded to these increased permissions.
And these are ADUs, and what about triplexes?
I don't have those numbers on hand. I would have to go back and pull those. But these are for additional dwelling units that have been built through our as of right 3 units per lot.
Okay. The rest, I think, are comments, so I'll come back.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chapman. Over to Councillor Davey.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, following up, thank you, Ms. Bustamante, for having that data. Do you know, so 4/15/25 today, that's good, we're showing progression. Do you have an idea, so I'm assuming some of those would just be duplexes though, from single to 2, is a question, and I guess this other question would be, do you have an idea on the uptake of tiny homes?
So through the chair, we don't have those stats available today, but I could certainly collect those the next couple of days and share that information with council.
Okay, thank you. The other question I have, and this one might not be for you, Ms. Bustamante, because you were off, but I actually was I'm really happy to see this before us. I was really keen on this 3 months ago, and at the time, the staff response was 2026, and there was some concern regarding other items that might fall off of the work plan if this were to be added. So I guess my question is, has staff found a way to implement this work without jeopardizing some of the other work we do? And I think Councillor Knight has sort of ask the question as to why it's so important at this point, but I'd just like to get an idea from staff.
So through the chair, so I'm just speaking with my colleague here. Yes, we do have a very ambitious work plan and a very full work plate. I am happy to report that there are quite a number of deliverables coming forward to council over the next 2 to 3 months, which will free up some capacity in our planning division and allow us to undertake this work. Should this motion pass tonight, we are well aware that this is a high priority for this council, and we have and we will make capacity to deliver this work by Q1 of next year.
Okay, good. And just, I will make a brief comment later, but just in terms of feedback, again, not we could amend this motion to death, but I'm happy to leave it as it is. But I think it's important. There's two sort of competing factors when staff's looking at this, and one is making sure that the changes are meaningful. Like if we set lot widths at 80 feet for 4 units, that's not going to accomplish anything. So staff has to really balance how that works. But on the other flip side of that too, in the comments that I've heard today, there is a very real concern about people, not so much in exclusive neighborhoods, which I agree is a terrible term, exclusive, but there's also a fear of people, for lack of a better term, Frankensteining the homes that they have in order to meet this fourplex criteria. So I know it's going to be a lot of work, but I just wanted to provide that bit of feedback. I'm sure my colleagues will fill in terms of other leniency.
Okay, so let's move over to comments now. Councillor Ioannidis, you still have a question? You still have a question? Okay. Over to you.
Thank you. I guess my overall question would be with regards to if we don't do this, what's the risk to the municipality in the sense of how are we going to manage our growth moving forward? Because if we don't do this, it kind of puts us in a hole of we only build high rises, and if we also don't do this, we also have a boundary that doesn't let us expand. So I'm just wondering what's the risk if we don't come up with some solutions for housing in general? Like, are we looking at a population decrease, or like what's the risk?
Anyone care to take that? Okay. Mr. Reedman?
Through the chair, so I would say that if we do not get our housing affordability under control, we could risk seeing a slowing economy. So municipalities that have seen extraordinary high increases in housing prices see population moving out from those communities. And so I think there's a whole suite of programs that we would like to implement through the planning team to look at a broad variety of mechanisms to increase housing supply. So this is one of those tools that we would like to look at.
Okay, thank you. Click in for comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving over to comments now. We'll start with Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Through my earlier questions, it's clear to see that I think this is absolutely a step in the right direction. I think what Councillor Ioannidis has said raises a good point. Affordability in housing is somewhat a problem of our own making. Some good, some bad. The good is that we're very successful. We're a community that everyone wants to be in, move to, create their home in. Bad, where we have been complacent a little bit, where we didn't see that increased demand is overly going to raise prices in housing as we have increased population coming. And now we are appearing more reactionary than reactive had we done this a decade or two ago. We had eased the process, like the development review, which we took a few years back, which the development community resoundingly is saying is successful. It's allowing those development applications to proceed much faster and in a very collaborative way, where some developers are coming forward with creative ideas of affordable housing units in their development where none is being asked for, which is excellent. And now, of course, us looking through a very it is, in this sense, proactive, because others are looking at it. We're deciding to do it now because we see the change. We see that that demand from higher orders of government who have additional dollars available to support our housing priorities, but that comes at changing our policies to make sure that we walk the walk, whichever the saying goes. Anyways, you guys get it. Point is, there has to be a change. And the change is not just in our built-up, in our urban cores, where we can accommodate, very tall buildings. It has to be across the city. It has to be in the built-up neighborhoods, because our built-up neighborhoods have tremendous assets. They have amazing parks, which our downtown doesn't. They have great schools, where there's limitation in our downtown, where we have phenomenal community centers. We celebrated community associations today, and everyone should have that privilege of being able to reside in those low-rise neighborhoods, not be a very exclusionary community. Those that were fortunate enough to buy many years back were able to get into that neighborhood. Now that's it. That's got to change. We got to create those options in unit sizes that are from bigger homes to medium homes to small homes to small units. And these small units will be able to make our community more equitable, to make sure we are more welcoming. So in that regard, in the 2 minutes I have, I know the chair is very pushing the time limit on this one. So to my earlier comments to staff, I'm hoping that they will also look at the current lot frontage requirements, which is on the lowest parameter of 9 meters and a minimum side yard setback of 1.2 meters as specified in existing zoning bylaws, which does at this point hinder optimal land utilization and construction possibilities within our municipalities, especially looking at other urban cores that allow smaller land parcels to accommodate smaller homes, where I think the changing trend in the market is seeking. Where also the reduction of the minimum frontage to 8 so looking at potentially to 8 meters or 8.25 meters, 27 feet, which is still far more than some other urban areas that go as far small as 25 feet. So I'm hoping that staff can consider amending the zoning bylaw to reduce those minimums as part of those recommendations, and also that council encourage staff to consider best practices and lessons learned from neighboring municipalities that have successfully implemented similar amendments to the zoning bylaw, ensuring balanced approach that aligns the community values, overall urban planning objectives, and growth strategies. Council needs to emphasize the importance of balancing the needs of the increased housing options, consider affordability, densification goals, while in lot frontage, side yard setbacks, requirements, as well as triplexing and fourplexing in our built-up neighborhoods, which increases land utilization efficiency and contribute to a vibrant and sustainable community. Council, I hope that Council will further encourage public education through this process, initiatives to inform residents about proposed amendments and the potential of utilization of their existing assets, how they potentially can redevelop or have an income stream on their current property if they so choose. This is a way to have councils express its commitment. So this motion is a way to have council express its commitment to promoting smart growth strategies, sustainable urban development practices, recognizing the importance of adopting zoning regulations to meet the evolving need of our community. And just once more, I want to thank Mayor Bovenovich for his leadership of bringing this motion forward, and happy to second it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Singh. Over to Councillor Deneau.
I got to follow that. Thank you,
Walk the
Chair.
walk.
I also want to thank the mayor for bringing this forward. I think this is just a small tool in our toolbox that we can use to create affordable housing, affordable units. And so, I'm sure, and I think we've received a few emails regarding this, and from the NIMBYism. But at the same time, as we've mentioned a few times around this horseshoe, we have a serious crisis, and we have to be proactive. We have to set the bar. And if other municipalities don't want to do this, and they lose out on funding, we'll give it to us then, because we will be creative in the solutions to help our own community. And so, again, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and I fully support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Deneau. Over to Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. So I would just like to, I'm not going to introduce an amendment either, but I would like to just highlight a few items that I would hope would be considered when going through this process. And one is affordability, because we talk about creating these fourplexes because they will be a more affordable form of housing stock. But I just want to ensure that we are taking the affordable component very seriously. I also want you to consider, I don't know what this would look like, but some provision that would ensure that we don't end up with a lot of Airbnbs, but that we're actually adding to the housing stock or the rental stock in a way that's designed for local residents. I'd like to also ensure, or I'd like you to think about displacements, the demolition of existing housing stock that could replace affordable housing units with not so affordable units. And the final point I wanted to, maybe it's a question, but what would this look like in heritage districts? And I'm not suggesting what it should look like, but I'm sure this is going to come up at some point. So those are my concerns. I look forward to hearing what staff comes up with as far as a proposed zoning bylaw. And so, yeah, I think it's could be an interesting exercise. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Over to Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Yes, everything's been well covered. The only bit of feedback, again, too, that I'll be looking for staff to respond to, and I mentioned this in the past, is with respect to tiny homes. And my understanding is the current triplexing maximum is you can only have one occupant in a tiny home. And when you're looking at the plausibility or the pro forma of someone considering doing that, tiny homes, I'm not sure if the rules are changed as part of Bill 23, but some tiny homes can be upwards of 800 square feet that lots would qualify for. And the basement doesn't count. So yeah, I think it might make some more financial sense if it's possible to tweak that so that if you're looking at 4 units on a property, that someone could actually live. If we could raise it up a little bit, so they're not living in a basement, get a bit of sunlight, maybe raise the height a little bit, to have 2 units on that tiny home, should people choose to go down that road. My remaining few minutes here, I just wanted to, again, thank Mayor Rabinovich. I was told 2026, and you're getting this done in 4 months. Thank you very much. I think it's very, very important. It's all part of the discussions that we've been having in terms of adding additional units and affordability, because we are in the middle of a crisis, and I don't necessarily appreciate Councillor Singh taking some responsibility for it, but I think the reality is pre-2021, none of us knew. We were being told that we were not only hitting, but exceeding our housing targets because somebody up the chain wasn't doing the math, and only when studies came out that showed that Canada is in fact dead last in the G7 in terms of number of homes per capita, that this started to come to light as to why our housing supply issue was so bad. And not only is Canada dead last, Ontario is dead last within Canada, so we have a whole lot of work to do, and I think this is beginning to solve that problem.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davey. Over to Councillor Michaud.
Thank you. Thank you. I will support this motion. I appreciate the mayor bringing it forward, and I'm not going to lie, I'm doing it with a bit of intrepidation. I understand our need to meet housing targets, and we have committed to that. We've done a great job. We've been very focused on intensification in the major transit areas, and now we're looking at intensification in neighborhoods across the city. And this will likely cause much angst among many citizens, but I think our planning staff has the ability and the skill sets, and hopefully with the right funding we'll have the manpower to create neighborhoods where we can really have it all. We can have our triplexes, our semi-detached, and all different kinds of housing, and still have breathing space for citizens. So we're not building so they're on top of each other and beside each other. There's still small front yards and backyards and sidewalks, and there's still going to be the neighborhoods that, you know, we all grew up in we all sitting around the horseshoe grew up in as kids, that we can look back 20 years from now and be really proud of what we're doing, because we are in an unprecedented time. I don't think there's ever been any kind of development that's gone on this fast and will continue to go for years to come. So I will support this motion, and I do thank the Mayor for bringing it forward.
Councillor Ioannidis. Hold on 1 second. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I really believe the biggest threat to our community is housing. That's no doubt the biggest concern for me. And I feel like we are always constrained on how we want to build a city that we feel that has many competing interests, and how do you do that when there's a lot of policies that constrain you as well to accommodate the needs of a community? And I still hear out there that people want to have a single family home, and they want their white picket fence. And I think, you know, the mindset out there is that there's this land that's available, and the reality is there is no land available. We don't have the land available to build what we see as the demand that's coming in, and we have the constraints of having, and I'm not saying the constraints as if they're a negative thing, I'm just saying the constraints of why we're having such affordable housing crisis is when you can't build any more outside of a certain line. You have a boundary, so that's artificially going to increase the price. You have the other side of the pendulum that doesn't want to see high rises, and you know, it's just this constant competing interests. And at the end of the day, we have to sit here as members of council representing this community, and our goal is you wanted to see our community still thrive, and you want to see our community still be able to attract. I don't want to see it to go in decline. I didn't come on here to see our community go on in a decline. And I guess, you know, we've done a great job for the last 20 plus years that we're in a community that's in demand. But, you know, one of the things too, and I still feel it, and I'm pretty sure a lot of other folks feel it too, coming out of the pandemic, it's like I woke up in a different city. But it's just, we have so many new residents in this community, and the demand, I see it everywhere. You see it in the transportation, like you can see it, like there's a lot of work that still needs to be done to support this. We need to have a robust transit system. We need to have, we have to make sure we build our communities, as Councillor Singham mentioned. We have the community centers, we have all that stuff. So we got to make sure we continue to build that livable city. And at the same time, we're all talking about wanting to protect the environment. I mean, there's a lot of lofty goals here. And I'm wholeheartly in support of this, because I feel like this is the least amount of, it's what I call gentle intensification. From my experience, it is definitely the most economical, outside of you know, having incentives from other levels of governments or from ourselves. Not everyone wants to live in a high-rise, and I think this is the next best thing. And I feel like if you really go out and look at other communities across, I wouldn't maybe say North America, but I mean throughout the world, they've managed to deal with density, and they've managed to look at their housing in a different lens. And I think when you do go out and you do see that, I think it gives you a better perspective on instead of just thinking, oh, my house should be just my single-family home. I mean, if in a perfect world we could have it all, but the reality is we can't. So I'm very happy that this is here. I know I've been a very huge advocate of this for a long time, and you know, I hope we send a really good message, because I do fear that if we do not be a proactive city, we will be on the sidelines when it comes to certain funding. And whether, regardless or not, we don't do this, this is going to come down as a mandate sooner rather than later. Because really, take a look around what's happening out there. It's happening really quick.
Thank you. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Councillor Ayaduni. First of all, Mayor, thank you so much for bringing this forward. I want to also thank our planning staff and our senior staff for embracing this. I want to give kudos to our planning staff, because they've been out ahead of many things. Tall Building Design Manual has inspired some incredibly beautiful buildings for people to live in. You know, our parks planning around rapid transit stations, the Housing for All strategy, the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, where we listened to and did what we can within our jurisdiction to address the housing crisis that we're in. This is a continuation of this, gives us another tool to do what we can in our role as a municipal government to inspire and help create more housing. I want to thank, too, my fellow councillors for their support in this and some of the great comments and concerns that they brought through. And I agree. We want this to be as attractive as possible for the most optimal uptake, while ensuring good design aesthetics. And as Mayor Vivanovic said, there are these 4-unit buildings that don't look like 4-unit buildings. That's incredible. I think it's time to rethink some of our current restrictions that'll help get more units built. The other thing I love about this is it brings back some of the lower end of our housing continuum. That's so important. You know, it used to be that maybe your first housing was a townhouse, and then you were able to move up to a semi-detached. And from that, after you built up some equity, you were able to move into a smaller home. And as your family grew, you could grow into a bigger home. This is going to help with that. This is going to give people a place and space to call their own. It's going to give them a sense of community. And one of the things I think is really important, and one thing I've learned in my time here as a councillor, is there are so many different lenses that people see things through. There are those that have been fortunate to have grown up in a house in the suburbs and had that big backyard and everything available to them. This is going to be a great starting point for that. There's also different lifestyles now. Like, there are people that do not want to own a car. And when I first heard that, I had a hard time understanding it, as a guy that's always owned a car and needed a car to get around. But you hear some of their philosophy behind it, and it makes a lot of sense. All the money you're spending on car payments, on insurance, on maintenance, on gas, on parking, you can put that towards other things like life experiences and your housing. So there's so many things to consider, and keeping an open mind as you know, citizens across the city. I think we need to keep in mind that we all don't see things from the same lens, and I just want to make sure that there's great housing options like this available. Again, thank you. This is going to increase our supply, it's going to help with affordability, and it's going to give more and better options. Proudly supporting.
Thank you, Councillor Schneider. Councillor Clancy.
Thank you. I really appreciate staff. I know so much comes your way on a regular basis, and I appreciate you taking on this body of work. I think it's really important, and thank you to the mayor as well for introducing this. I appreciate this motion because I think fourplexes not only help people trying to get into the market pay their mortgage. I hear of folks really buckling under the weight of the interest rate increases and at risk of losing their homes. So that's a big stressor. I can't imagine folks facing that, especially as another quarter-point percentage looms. So, the ability to add a unit into the basement, as my first home was a duplex, and that helped us pay the mortgage when I'm at leave and my partner went to study. So it really helps folks pay the bills. It's here now. Right? These are units that we don't have. We always talk about shovels in the ground, but this is even better than that, where we already have plumbing, there's already electrical, there's sewage hookups, right? If we look at the differential between servicing a new suburb into sprawl, it's 2.5 times that, which is local and adding density to the infrastructure we already have. I also think it will help seniors who are on a fixed income and overhoused. Kids have moved out and they're looking for a way to support themselves in retirement. I am still concerned about displacement of low-income renters and the financialization of our housing market, which is a big concern. But I think because this is widespread across the city, there'll be so much opportunity that I think it will offset any of those concerns. So I think this is a big win. I've heard from lots of small, medium-sized developers who have bought a home, their first kind of investment property, and really want to cut the red tape, and I think that'll make this kind of build more accessible. I've seen so many great examples of that in Ward 10 of these old 1920s homes that are just easily become a triplex, and then with an ADU in the back. It just makes total sense, and it fits with what we already do in our city. So I'm really excited to see this because I think we're catching up from decades of underbuilding, and we can really maximize and find a right fit to make sure the housing we already have is optimized. So I appreciate this and in full support.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is really, it's a great move. It's an exciting move. And you know what it really is? It's a hopeful move because during the election, I heard from a number of people around my age, actually, who would say that they were very saddened that they didn't feel that their children, who were having children, would be able to afford to buy a home in our community. And the ability to now, we had this before, but I mean, we're making it this much better. But to be able to have your children be able to live on your property, your parents, that sandwich generation that's now able to provide housing in their neighborhood for their entire families, who maybe were living in a congregated setting that didn't really meet their needs before, is pretty exciting. And I also want to say a huge thank you to council. I mean, just listening to all your comments around the horseshoe here and the caring and compassion that's here, and the wanting to have more affordable housing and more choices for people in our community to be able to stay here and to be able to provide more housing for all the new people that are coming here as well is really, it's very commendable and makes me very happy to share this council with you. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Mayor Barry Vanovic.
Thanks very much, Chair O'Dooney and Councillor Johnston. You stole my words that I was going to start off with, and I'm quite okay with that. And this council has heard me say it before, and I will say it again tonight. As I listen to the discussion around this horseshoe, having the privilege of serving together with all of you in terms of the passion and care that you bring to this community and the thoughtfulness you bring to issues like this and others makes it makes it a real privilege to work with all of you. And I'd be remiss if, as some of you have already done, not acknowledge our staff team who really helps provide the guidance and the support and oftentimes the leadership as well to encourage us to be aspirational and to give us the level of professional advice that's necessary in order to achieve that. You know, the challenges, and you know, many people often talk about it, the challenges, the problems that we're dealing with in terms of housing. I actually, while I recognize that there are challenges certainly for some, I'll also say that I believe that there are opportunities. And there are opportunities that have been years in the making for a whole variety of reasons. But the point is we can't look back in terms of, you know, what has been. I think what's important is, using a hockey analogy, that the great Wayne Gretzky often talked about, is looking at where the puck is going, and I think this is where the puck is going, and the suggestions, whether it's this one or a number of the other initiatives that we're looking at, is looking at how do we build the kind of community we want to be in the future, that's built on the successes that we've had in the past. And so, you know, I think as we reflect on this, yes, it's about, you know, growing the local economy, it's about growing our population, it's about attracting and retaining talent. But more importantly, it's about the people, and it's about making sure that people across all walks of life, across different times in their lives, have the kind of housing they need to support them. It's about the young person, the 24-year-old that just finished college or university, and yeah, they love mom and dad, but you know what? They'd actually like to have a place of their own, and mom and dad probably would like in some instances, or in many instances, for them to have a place of their own. It's about the older adult in their 70s who, you know, maybe has lost a partner already, loves their neighborhood, loves their house, but are overhoused and want to be able to stay in their neighborhood, and maybe want the having someone else in the house, whether it's to help cut the grass or shovel the snow or just to be there to check on them periodically. And that's such a better alternative than maybe some of the other options that might otherwise be available to them in terms of quality of life. And a whole range of other people, you know, along life's journey that'll benefit from the kinds of decisions that we're considering tonight and making. You know, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the fact that, you know, this part of this discussion, and as Councillor Davey indicated, this is a discussion that's happened around this horseshoe before, and he and others have raised it, and I thank them for it. But it's also come from being able to have good collaborative partners at the other orders of government, and fundamentally, it takes a village to deal with these challenges or opportunities. And that means all orders of government, the private sector, the not-for-profit sector, the whole community coming together to tackle them. And in this particular instance, I do want to you know, thank Minister Fraser for his encouragement in the correspondence as he and his officials continued to evaluate our application. I will thank and acknowledge his predecessor, but I will also thank our local government MPs. I mean, I spoke with MP Lewis this morning when we were at the groundbreaking for the library, and on the weekend, while at events, I had the opportunity to speak with MP Bradford and Chagger on this and on our application, and really want to just thank them for their support. And I look forward, as they continue to evaluate this, and hopefully see in the not too distant future a positive outcome. I will note, and it isn't. I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that there are a number of other cities, London, Halifax, Vaughan, Hamilton, who have already gone down this path. I understand the province of BC is actually looking at doing this provincially. And just down the highway, Guelph, I know, is going to be looking at it tomorrow night, Burlington as well, and I think Ajax in addition to that. So I think we as a council can be proud of the fact that we're amongst the first in the province and the country to be going down this road, and together with our staff team, we'll be able to continue to make some positive changes for our community. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will, at the appropriate time, ask for a recorded vote.
Okay, recorded vote has been requested for. That means I need to go back to my seat, so at least it is registered over there. But do I need to do anything over here, by the way? No, I should just go. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Dooney, for chairing for that last section, and a recorded vote has been called, and if I can ask folks to vote, please. And that is carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. Well done. Okay, we will now move on then to the reports of the committees, and we'll start with Heritage Kitchener, and I will turn it over to Councillor Debbie Chapman.
Thank you. It has been moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Michaud that the report of Heritage Kitchener dated October 3rd, 2023, listed as items 7.1.A to 7.1.C on the agenda of the state be adopted. All those in favor?
No, you just need to move it.
Oh.
Okay, so it's been moved. Is there a...
Seconded by Councillor Michaud.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Councillor Chapman. You got overwhelmed by your enthusiasm for the motions in front of us. Planning and Strategic Initiatives Committee, Councillor Singh.
Thank you.
Hang on. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Chapman. Items as listed in the agenda. Item 7.2.C has already been dealt with as a deferral, and the remaining items for before Council.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Any unfinished business? Any new business? We'll then move on to, no, not questions and answers yet, that comes later. We'll now move on to mayoral business and updates. And so, colleagues, we already dealt with one item on that that was going to be part of my report this evening. But I also wanted to touch on the Housing Affordability Task Force recommendations. So, Council, back on September 15th, received correspondence from Minister Calandra, as did all other 443 mayors across the province of Ontario, asking us to provide input into the Housing Task Force recommendations. There was 70-some recommendations in that regard, and basically they were looking for us to indicate whether or not we support them, whether we don't. And whether we have, what are our 5 top priorities in that regard. Late this afternoon I submitted it because one of the requirements was if you don't submit it then you don't have access to the BFF fund later on, and so we made sure that was submitted. I will circulate that to Council later today. The document that we put forward was consistent with the position that the Association of Municipalities of Ontario took with respect to some of the areas of concern. In fact, there were 3 primary ones, and as I said, that has been submitted now, and I'll share that with Council later this evening. That would be it in terms of the items that I have there, and so we will move on to notices of motion, and I will move on to Councillor Singh and his notice of motion on park dedication program review. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My motion brought by myself and seconded by Councillor Schneider. Would you like me to just read it out? Or,
yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. So this is a notice to introduce the following motion considering whereas the City of Kitchener has a long-standing formal park dedication program that allows citizens, organizations, businesses to dedicate trees, benches, and other amenities throughout our city parks, trails, and public spaces, whereas the current dedication process may involve unnecessary complexities, leading to delays and inefficient management of resources, whereas the Places and Spaces strategy development underway includes a review of the dedication program and community engagement has demonstrated support for a formalized dedication program, whereas a review of the dedication program will ensure that the dedication process is streamlined, transparent, accessible, maximizing citizen participation and satisfaction, whereas the dedication of trees, benches, and other objects under this program holds significant value for commemorating loved ones, celebrating accomplishments, and fostering community engagement. Whereas it is essential for the City of Kitchener to maintain an efficient and effective dedication program that aligns with a commitment to sustainability, inclusive community development, the City's strategic initiatives and goals, and responsible resource management. Therefore, be it resolved that staff be directed to conduct a thorough review of the dedication program with a key focus on the dedication process for tree, benches, and other commemorative donations. Furthermore, the review shall include, but not be limited to, the following aspects: evaluation of the current dedication program strengths and weaknesses, including feedback from council, citizen, program participants, and relevant community stakeholders; analysis of the administrative procedures involved in the dedication process, aiming to identify potential bottlenecks and areas for improvement; examination of the best practices and the lessons learned from other municipalities with successful dedication programs for similar amenities; assessment of the resource allocation and cost recovery mechanism related to dedication, ensuring sustainability, equitable access for all community members; exploring and recommendation of the technological solutions such as an online platform or mobile applications that could streamline the dedication process while ensuring transparency and accountability. Be it finally resolved that staff shall present their finding and recommendations to City Council in spring of 2024, along with an implementation plan of a proposed changes to the dedication program. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. I'm sorry, I didn't catch who was seconding that. Councillor Schneider, thank you very much. We do have a couple people in the queue. Councillor Johnson.
Yes, thank you. I don't have a question. I have a comment. Is that okay? Great.
Go
thank
ahead.
you. Yeah, I just wanted to thank Councillor Singh for bringing this forward. This is certainly something that neighborhood associations, different community groups have talked about for quite some time. As I would say, especially in my ward, I've had people that are interested in being able to dedicate trees and parks and things as well. So this is exciting, and I like how thoughtfully you have outlined how you're asking for staff to look at what other communities and that are doing. I know when I visit other communities, I see dedications in many places. I think it'll be a great way to maybe raise some money, but at the same time be able to recognize important people in the community. So I look forward to the staff report, and thanks again.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for bringing this forward. Just a point of clarification. You're talking about city parks, trails, and public spaces only? Okay.
Yeah, so the review would undertake for our city open spaces, landscapes and open spaces, yeah. So parks, trails.
Okay, so I just wanted to make a comment on this. Yeah. So there was an event held recently put on by the Bereavement Families of Ontario, and they had a tree planting event, and nobody was allowed to put a plaque up. And I happened to be there. We planted a tree in memory of my father. And everybody was asking the question, right? Why can't we put a plaque here? So I think this is really important. So, it's not the same as putting a plant in the ground as it is, putting a plant in the ground and making sure that it's marked in some way or other. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Any other, Councillor Singh?
Just for my comments, if no one else
Actually,
is,
hold on. I'll come back to you last because Councillor Ioannidis just clicked in. Councillor Ioannidis?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Councillor Singh, for, I know you had mentioned this to me earlier, a week back. What did I think about this? And it was just, I was like, these are the types of motions that we like to see here, the ones that we can actually have an impact in our community, and it was quite telling that the timing of this, because I just literally probably like the day before I was dealing with a resident that was wanting to, dedicate their boulevard tree to their son that passed away. So I was like, this is good timing. So I think we do need to have a better comprehensive approach to how we do these things within our municipality. And we do have a lot of open spaces, and if it means help growing more trees and bettering the environment at the same time, then why not? So I think this is a great motion put forward. Thank you.
Councillor Michaud, just one sec. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Councillor Singh as well for putting this motion forward. I too have personally, benefited from someone dedicating a tree to someone that I lost, and to see the tree 10 years later, and it's a huge red maple. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I can imagine how families like Councillor Chapman and others who have lost loved ones, that it's just a wonderful thing to do. So I really appreciate you bringing this forward. Thank you.
Okay. Just before I give you the floor, Councillor Singh, I too want to thank you for bringing this forward. I know these kinds of commemorations can be very meaningful for families and individuals, and I think looking at how we can augment what we already do and put a stronger system in place will be wonderful. And so with that, I will certainly support your motion. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate the comments from my colleagues. And I had been thinking about this for a while, just having the opportunity to go travel, and at the same time for conferences, and you see the cities where you see small things, like the plaques or the benches that might just have something that's a note, the dedication to whom that person, the bench that was dedicated to, from a surface level, from high above, it seems like a trivial thing, but far too often around this horseshoe, we deal with such big things, like tall buildings and all that, but we forget about the little stuff. And my conversation with Councillor Chapman kind of prompted me that we can make this change very easily. It's not enough that we just allow the bench to take place, benches which cost a lot of money. We got to figure out a way that we can streamline that and make it more equitable and an easier process for people to be able to dedicate that, or tree planting. But it's another where it's a sense of ownership, where someone can leave a little plaque in dedication in a loved one or a celebration, and it allows for placemaking for that individual, for that family, to come back to that place and take pride, take ownership, take a sense of wanting to take care, not just that individual item or tree, but community improvement. So in that regard, I think allowing this and seeing more of it happening within our city is going to be a huge improvement, and small steps lead to huge improvements. And I think this can be the exact example, because a lot of other communities have taken considerable benefit by these programs, where we are still haven't yet, but hopefully through this review and staff recommendations, and especially a process that can be a little bit more streamlined, where people can easily get the information or put forward an application through an app, that we can encourage many to have that uptake. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so with that, all those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you, Councillor Singh. Questions and answers. Councillor Clancy.
I just wanted to bring something up, and it's specifically related to renovictions. I know I want to thank staff, we've done a good job, I think, with developments that come forward to council meetings to acknowledge people who live in these homes that are slated for demolition. I'd like to see that extend to the site plan and other kinds of builds to acknowledge folks that will be displaced through the process. I know other cities are kind of trying to gather this data as a way to understand the breadth and depth of this issue of, for every affordable house we build, how many do we lose in the private sector? I know that we won't cover that completely because people move out of a unit, somebody else moves in at triple the rent, and it is no longer affordable. But I think as a city, if we can measure what we value, we can change what we measure, and I would find it helpful as a councillor when I see the site plan approvals come into my email box to have the people who live there acknowledged. And just want to ask how that would work out. Is that a viable process that could be included in our already existing processes going sometime in the future?
Through the chair, thank you for the question, Councillor Clancy, and thank you for giving us a heads up on that earlier today. I can give you an answer to what we're planning to do in the very near future on the displacement piece. So as part of our rental housing study, we've committed to hosting a survey on our webpage that will collect information from tenants who have or will be evicted from rental units because of their landlord's intent to demolish, renovate, convert, or occupy the unit. So staff are currently reviewing the draft survey content with our Lived Expertise Working Group and expect to have their input at this week's meeting. And then we'll be in a position to post the survey on our city website and start to collect that data voluntarily from those who are able to provide us with that input. Additionally, along with that, we have requested from the province data from the Landlord Tenant Board for applications related to what they call N12s, N13s, and T5s. So these are applications of notices to end tenancy because of intended occupancy of the unit by the landlord or a family member, notice to end tenancy because of intent to demolish, repair, or convert, and notices where the landlord gave notice of termination in bad faith. So the Landlord Tenant Board does collect that information, and we have requested that data for Kitchener. My understanding is we recently received that in the last number of days or number of weeks, and so staff will be going through that to understand how many instances of that have been reported to the Landlord Tenant Board. So I am hopeful that we will have some metrics to report back on in short order. We just don't have them quite yet.
I'm really pleased to hear that you already have this on your radar and that there's wheels in motion. There's a specific building in my ward, 199 Aaron's, where a landlord who, in Mr. Deneau's ward, also has been working to displace tenants of their building, and they lost at Landlord Tenant Board and now have put an application in for renovation that will, I know, displace folks on ODSP paying affordable rents right now. So I really, when we put a face to this issue, I really feel compelled, and I'm glad that you'll bring some information forward. Do you know when we might see some of that data?
Go ahead.
So through the chair, we are planning to bring that data back to council in December.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Councillor Deneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think my question may be answered by your last answer, but Councillor Davey brought a motion back in the spring, summer, looking for some information as to what the city can do as far as displacement. So is that part of that report? Sorry.
Go ahead, Ms. Bustamante.
Yes, so through the chair, there are a number of different housing tools and pieces that we are bringing forward over the coming months. So one of the other pieces that will come forward in December is a look at sort of what tools are available to municipalities, including something like a rental replacement bylaw and other tools that we are currently scanning across different jurisdictions. So we do want to understand all the tools that are available to local municipalities, and we will present that suite of options to council for consideration in December.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, any other questions and answers? Okay, there being none, we'll move on to the bylaws. And Madam Clerk, I believe there are some late starter bylaws.
Through the chair, with the deferral of the one planning application this evening, there's only one late starter bylaw, a zoning bylaw amendment for 7 Morrison Road.
Okay. So with that, do I have someone to move the first and second reading of the bylaws? Councillor Singh and Councillor O'Dooney, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And it's been moved by Councillor Johnson that we resolve ourselves into committee of the whole. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Johnson, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there a mover for the administrative reports listed on the committee of the whole agenda, 12.1.a through 12.1.2, or sorry, 12.1.1.b? Thank you, and seconded by Councillor Schneider. I'm sorry? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, I just wonder if we could remove 12.1.b. I wanted to ask a question.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. I wonder if we could remove 12.1.b. Do I have to? Can I ask a question for 12.1.b?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Yes, sorry.
I just wondered, like, really, there's only in the whole Canada and the U.S. there's only one company that makes the pump trucks, or what? I don't have the motion in front of me. But surely there must be Canadian companies that also build these vehicles, are there not?
Thank you. Through the chair, great question. There is Canadian companies that parse out the manufacturing, but if you want a complete start to finish build, you have to go to the U.S. And so what that does is it guarantees us better warranty work, better sustainability of the manufacturers, so they won't go out of business during the life cycle of our trucks.
So we don't put out an RFP for this. We just always go with the same manufacturer. Is that how this works?
So in this instance, the sourcing exercise will fall back onto the procurement and their delegated authority. So they're basically tacking it onto a previous order through a cooperative. I don't have all those details, but I could find them out.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any other questions? Oh, Councillor Clancy?
Yeah, I was just curious about the surplus, there was talk about just holding on to the potential surplus. I just wonder what the rationale is for that instead of the dollars going back into the city budget. Is that for another time?
Oh, Mr. Lautenbach?
So through the chair, typically for fire equipment, it has one budget that we use in terms of replacement of equipment. So although there's a surplus indicated, that surplus will be used for future replacements that will be needed further on in the forecast. So it's factored in terms of what those ultimate needs are for fire, but that's the reason why it's indicated as surplus based on what we expect, and that will be used to manage any kind of fluctuations within the price that would be experienced.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Davey.
Yeah, thank you. Just actually a quick comment on this, if I could. Just wanted to point out, like, when you want to see, commitment to efficiency. When I was looking through this, I was really impressed. Staff's looking this far ahead to make sure they not only avoided the supply chain issues, but also to lock the prices in today versus we all know what prices are going to be going forward. So just want to, again, thank staff for, this attention to detail, because these are the sorts of things that end up going way over budget when we wait too long. And if you're not convinced by this, the next report where I believe we're under budget on every single procurement item as well. Put those two together, I'm a happy camper over here.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, all in favor of the administrative reports? Thank you. Any opposed? And the motion carries. Then, okay, and 12.2.A was just for information. Any matters, any matters arising from in camera?
Through the chair, there are two matters for council's consideration. The motions will be presented on the screen. The first one is arising from the October 2nd caucus meeting, and a second motion arising from today's caucus meeting.
Okay. All right, and do I need a mover? Oh, you have a question? Oh, comment. Yes, please go ahead, Mayor.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just want to briefly comment on, do you want to make sure I'm commenting on the right one? Is this ABTC? Yes, okay, thank you. I just wanted to comment briefly on this. So this is an extension of an agreement with a Better Tent City for the lands that the City of Kitchener, together with the Waterloo Region District School Board, is making available for the volunteer-run organization, A Better Tent City, that is serving approximately 50 residents of our community who otherwise would be homeless. And I really do want to just acknowledge both our last council and this council, who admittedly, took some risks and grappled with this issue, starting in the dark days of the pandemic, when there were a group of people in our community who needed housing accommodation, and were prepared to work with the founders of a Better Tent City, not only then, but then in their successive moves, both always to city facilities or city lands. And I'm pleased to see this before us again today, and also want to acknowledge the Public School Board for their partnership and collaboration with us on this in order to serve this community. I know, this has been a challenging operation for the folks who are leading it, and so I want to acknowledge the group that is really made up of both St. Mary's Church, downtown Kitchener, the Working Center, and the Social Development Center as the leads in terms of A Better Tent City and the work that they've been doing. And I do know that one of their challenges continues to be fundraising around this. I will note it is a program that is funded by the community, and not, while they have had some support early on from the region, it is not funded by the region, unlike the other shelter programs. And so, I want to acknowledge all of the volunteers and funders that help make this program a reality, and I do hope that Council will support this unanimously again this evening.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other comments?
Through you, the chair, if you can just give us one moment. I'm missing one of the amendments that was put forward, so can we vote on the next item first, and we'll capture the amended clause.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Come back to this one and go deal with the next motion.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay, any comments? Seeing none. Do I need a mover for this, Ms. Saunderson? Yes? Okay, thank you. Moved by Councillor Singh, seconded by Councillor Clancy. All those in favor? That is carried.
Madam Chair, can I maybe just suggest that you verbalize what, like you don't need to necessarily post it. I think just sharing the wording that you think you will.
I'm just a big supporter of a Better Tent City. I think they fill a big gap in our community. I've seen them constantly coming forward with creative solutions to the issues that our city faces. They're responsive, they're nimble, they're flexible, they're compassionate, and they serve a group that has complex needs, which in a way that it makes my heart grow 10 sizes. And I appreciate all they do as volunteers, as staff, to evolve over time. I think we've learned a lot, and we've been recognized nationally because of their trailblazing efforts and the partnership with the city and the school board. So I'm happy to support this because I think we need to do all we can to make their work easier. And I hope we all donate as much as we can to them because they run a shoestring budget. The amount of support they offer to one underhoused person per dollar is incredible. Like, it's so valuable. I can't express enough gratitude for the work they do. You should go flip pancakes there. It's the best experience of your life.
Thank you, Councillor Clancy. I think we're just making the last touches to this.
Through the chair, the resolution on the screen is fine as is. Apologies for the...
I'm sorry. Okay. All right. And all those in favor? Thank you. Okay.
We'll move that the committee rise and report.
Yes. It has been moved by my... I'm sorry? All in favor? Thank you. That is carried. It is being moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Michaud that the proceedings and the recorded pecuniary interests and conflicts taken in the meeting of the Committee of the Whole held this date as attached hereto and forming part of these minutes be and the same are hereby adopted and confirmed. Moved by, do I need to move that again?
Oh, sorry, that's me now.
Yeah.
Apologies. I was so, engrossed in the moment. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Third reading of the bylaws with the late starters, Madam Clerk, correct? Thank you. Moved by Councillor Ioannidis, seconded by Councillor Schneider. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Michaud, seconded by Councillor Chapman. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much, Council.